This is the story of how I beat Bannerlord using only my family members in 54 years. The rules are as follows. I cannot use any regular troops in combat, only family members and companions. I cannot join any kingdom, whether as a mercenary or a vassal, as it would make the campaign too easy. I cannot form or join armies either. Adoption via the Bannerlord mod is not allowed. Every child must come from my ballsack. Our ultimate goal is to conquer the entire continent. Before we begin, let's talk about the main hero of this video, Aladdin the First, the great and many more greats, grandfather of Hafez Aladdin, whom we know today from the 2012 movie The Dictator. Aladdin I was the founder of the Wadia Sultanate and the originator of many traditions within the Aladdin family. Born as Unkid's bastard from one of his concubines, Aladdin was never acknowledged or properly raised by his father. To Unkid, he was little more than a stranger. Deprived of a father's love, Aladdin found his true purpose: to teach his father how to raise bastards correctly. As he grew older, he set out to prove his point. He would recruit female warriors from various taverns as his personal virgin bodyguards, deceive noblewomen into marrying him and his brothers, and use them as breeding machines to produce powerful sons who would kill in his name. Then, he would manipulate more noblewomen into marrying his sons, assembling an army made entirely of his own offspring and concubines. And when the entire continent trembled beneath his feet, his father, Unkid, would finally understand the importance of a father being a good role model. As for the Modlist, it's mostly the same as in my previous video, how a bandit destroyed every clan in Bannerlord, with a few adjustments to keep this playthrough more balanced, since we'll be spending a lot of time waiting for our children to grow up, disabling death for all, and AI executions is necessary to ensure enough nobles remain to challenge us in the late game. The diplomacy settings have been adjusted to both extend the lifespan of weaker kingdoms and allow new ones to emerge. I've also changed Bannerlord settings so that other clans would keep their bastard children in their ranks, instead of sending them to an orphanage. This way, enemy clans would grow alongside ours, keeping things challenging in the late game. I have disabled true army costs and true battle loot. The former is irrelevant since we don't use troops, and the latter would only make the game easier without adding any real challenge. Additionally, I've included two new modes. Time Lord reduces days per season from 21 to 7, making everyone age 3 times faster. All other settings are disabled to maintain both compatibility and immersion. No relation. A simple mod that removes those annoying relation change pop-ups, which nearly drove me insane while making the last video. I also tweaked XP gain to ensure every character reaches their full potential before dying of old age, setting a multiplier of 5 for the main character and 10 for clan members and all other heroes in the world. Lastly, I disabled the posture system and combat module of RBM, leaving it solely to improve AI's combat tactics and blocking skills. Let's begin. Our race, of course, is Aserai. This is the most Aladdin character I could come up with. Unfortunately, Bannerlord doesn't have giant imam beards, but this one looks decent enough. On the character creation screen, we'll prioritize throwing and endurance to craft the most insane mounted javelin abuser Calradia has ever seen. Party skills are mostly irrelevant in this playthrough, giving us plenty of freedom in building our character. Maximum difficulty with death and aging enabled as always. Our clan name shall be Banu Wadia, which means children of Wadia in Arabic. Our banner looks close enough to Wadia's national flag. Good enough. After leaving the training field, we make a beeline for Poros and use the classic cutting animals and selling civilian gear strategy to make some quick cash. That money goes straight into filling all our weapon slots with javelins and upgrading our sumpter horse to a proper warhorse. We start hunting for looters to train our throwing skill before reuniting with our family. 11 looters against our poor tiny Aladdin. Time for a trial by fire. The The key difference between mounted bows and javelins is that javelins aren't meant for kiting. Their limited rotation angle and lackluster damage without momentum make them ineffective for that. Instead, you should treat them like a crouched lance with extended range, charging straight at enemies and taking them down before they can touch you. With just one javelin left in our pockets, we claim victory. Plus 14 skill in throwing and plus 17 in riding. Not bad at all. We upgrade our armor, sell the rest, and engage another group of 11 looters. Using the same tactics, we win again, but this time with only a sliver of health left. Barely clinging to life, we ride to Danustica, carefully avoiding other bandits. After selling our loot, we come across Light Lancea, a solid javelin with a stack of 5. We sell one of our old javelins and empty our savings to afford just a single Light Lancea. Then we spend 3 days recovering from our wounds before setting out again. After leaving the city, we continued our looter hunting. Along the way, I encountered Ragia's army. I was excited, not because of Neretz's folly, but because I wanted to Aladdin on her pretty face. Unfortunately, she was too busy besieging a castle to spare any time for a handsome man like us. Moving on, I took down some looter parties and spoke to 2 emirs to progress the main story. Then we entered a tournament in Hubyar. Since Asirai tournaments revolve around javelins, it was an easy win for us. The X reward was useless, but the extra renown was a nice bonus. Feeling confident, we went after a party of 19 looters. With our throwing skill improving, our javelin stack size increased as well. I believed we had what it took, but my aim said otherwise. I missed far too many shots but still managed to thin them out. However, toward the end, I took too many unnecessary rocks to the face. With only 3 looters left, I got knocked out. After a day in captivity, the looters let me go, seeing me as nothing more than a burden. Aladdin was deeply offended. He would remember those 7 remaining looters. He returned to Hubyar to recover. After regaining about 50% of his health, he set out once more, determined to find those 7 looters. It didn't take long. He tracked them down and charged in with pure Aladdinish fury. His trusty steed galloped fearlessly into battle, but in the chaos, a pitchfork found its way into Aladdin's belly. Gritting his teeth, he quickly maneuvered his mount and rained javelins upon his enemies, until a looter gently caressed his backside with a pickaxe, sending him straight into unconsciousness. This time the looters decided to teach him a lesson, so he'd never bother them again. They hatched a cruel plan to shove a sharp metal object into his haram hole, but nature had granted Aladdin divine protection. The impenetrable jungle of hair repelled their efforts, shielding the sacred site from all earthly dangers. They tried cutting it, but its sheer toxicity melted any weapon that dared to touch it. Awestruck by this supernatural, untrimmable fortress of butt hair, the looters had no choice but to let him go once again. However, there were only 6 of them left now. Aladdin doesn't forget. He bided his time in Hubyar, healing once more. When fully recovered, he resumed his hunt. He found them near the desert mountains. This time, there would be no mistakes. He took his revenge, but all 6 were dead before he could properly enjoy it. Unable to torture them, Aladdin was left unsatisfied. He set his sights on desert bandits, with no throwing weapons or shields, except for their elite Harami units. They were nothing more than free meat for Aladdin to feast upon. That was until he made a very stupid mistake. He attacked a party of 12 while being chased by a party of 16. At least he had the sense not to fight them both, securing his freedom by generously donating 320 gold to the Democratic Bedouin Socialist Union. But before they could even spend their newfound wealth, Aladdin struck. He hunted down the party of 12 and slaughtered them, leaving 48 captive wives as fresh widows. He then traveled to Iyakis to sell the loot before continuing his Bedouin pesticide. Afterward, he entered another tournament and claimed victory, earning himself a lion pelt cape as a trophy. Then he found the party of 16 from before. Most of them were cavalry, making the fight far more challenging for Aladdin, with most of his javelins wasted on moving targets. He was forced to retreat and restock his supply. Once replenished, he returned to finish the job. The 5 remaining stragglers were no match for him, earning him 6 renown and a decent haul of loot. A few more battles later, both his throwing and riding skills hit the 200 milestone. Upon returning to town to sell his spoils, he made some key purchases: an Askarat, a shield, and an axe. He had a hideout to clear, and for that, he needed a solid melee option to 1v1 the boss. He named the Askarat Nadal, head of his nuclear research team. He hunted more bandits and searched for a bandit hideout quest. But for some reason, the villagers didn't seem to care about its existence. No bounty, no complaints, nothing. Still, Aladdin attacked the hideout for the good of the realm. Killing the Bedouins was easy. Finding them, however, was a pain in the ass. After what felt like a tiny marathon, we were finally ready to face their boss. We accepted his duel proposal. We had 2 javelins left. The first struck his neck, thanks to his stellar reflexes. The second hit him square in the face, killing him instantly. I guess the melee weapon wasn't necessary after all, if only I knew he was incapable of raising his shield. At least all that running around earned us plus 65 in athletics. Aladdin continued his hunt while also investing points into trading, as we'd soon be transitioning into an honest, hard-working merchant. After more relentless bandit slaughter, Aladdin finally reached 250 in throwing, unlocking the Impale perk, a game changer that allows his javelins to crush through shields. The single perk single-handedly makes throwing actually worth the effort. Word of his incredible achievement spread fast. Monchuk wasted no time offering him a mercenary contract, clearly unaware that Aladdin serves no one but himself. Ignoring the offer, he traveled to Quyaz, where he met his first virgin guard.
I know they are virgins because I have their virginity checked every night by the head of my pin.
Zalisa, the exile. She wasn't the most charming, but hey.
The dark races are less choosy.
I redistributed her attribute points and skills in a way that would make her useful, but not crazy overpowered. Next, we entered the tournament to win a better cape, passing the old one down to Zalisa. We also geared her up to fit her new role as a horse archer. Then, we recruited some peasants to progress the main story. They won't see combat, we'll order them to retreat as soon as battle begins. We cleared another hideout solo without calling in our so-called troops. After gathering 20 recruits, the quest advanced, and Radagos paid us a visit. He informed us that our siblings were imprisoned in a nearby hideout, which apparently was the exact one we had just wiped out minutes ago. Without hesitation, we rushed back and assaulted it again, this time with Radagos at our side. We refused the duel, thinking Aladdin could one-shot them while Radagos tanked. Instead, they one-shot both of us. We returned to Quyaz to heal our wounds, spending 4 days resting before heading back to the hideout. This time, Radagos couldn't join us, so we made sure not to repeat our previous mistake. We accepted the duel. Aladdin launched a javelin straight into the bandit leader's skull. Surprisingly, this didn't kill him. It didn't even leave a scratch on his face. Radagos' axe, however, did the job. With the fight over, we reunited with our siblings. Radagos apologized for killing our parents, but Aladdin found his face far too Jewish to be forgiven. We added our brother, Najun, to our party, armed him with javelins and redistributed his skills. We decided to hold on to our peasant recruits a little longer, not for battle, but for their extra carry weight. It was time to start trading. We bought as much oil as possible along with some linens from Aserai lands and hauled them to westerners for a massive profit. Oil never changes. Ortisia had an abundance of cheap salt, thanks to its coastal location. We bought up everything marked in green and sold everything in our inventory that was also green. Town after town, we kept trading, stacking experience. joining every tournament we stumbled upon and, of course, scouting for suitable breeding machines along the way. Then Aladdin found her. Feya had the required amount of boobs to qualify as his wife. With his astonishing riz, he seduced her instantly.
I'm attracted to you in a really fucked up way.
By the second day of winter, 1085, they were married. I sent a messenger to Caladog, looking to marry off my brother. He offered Beasag, Winser's daughter, a young lady, only 19 years old, perfect for breeding. However, even our entire inventory wasn't enough to afford her. We needed to find a cheaper version of her. So we went to China. Oh wait, there are no Chinese in Calradia. My bad. Instead, we continued trading, waiting for sieges to end, so we could exploit the starving masses by selling them food at quadruple the price. Somewhere along the way, Feya fell pregnant.
Are you having a boy or an abortion?
We finally had the pleasure of meeting Ragnar. She was pregnant, despite having no husband, no lovers, not even friends with benefits. Suspicious and depressing in equal measure. I kept things friendly, gained her trust, and then asked if she could help find a bride for my brother. She offered Vasilia, a 20-year-old woman. Her skills didn't matter. We'd redistribute them anyway. Then came the price. 21k gold. Nearly all our money. We politely declined and continued our search for a more budget-friendly wife. We continued trading, and nearly every town we visited was hosting a tournament. Perfect opportunities to upgrade our companions' gear. During a stop in Sanala, Aladdin impregnated Salisa and finally reached 125 in trading, unlocking the perk that grants 1 renown per caravan. We won't need to do any more trading once we get rid of the leftover goods in our inventory. Later, at the tavern in Queaz, he met Yasna Willowbark, a Sturgian shield maiden too naive to realize what she was signing up for. We redistributed her skills just like Zalisa's, and got her pregnant as well. While we were busy with more trading and tournaments, we met Baroness Kalatild. Aladdin won her trust with his sharp tongue, and asked for a bride for his brother. She offered the hand of Odofled, a 25-year-old woman, fertile enough. She didn't even ask for a dowry. Oh, what an amazing wingman of a brother we are. Now we travel to Ortizia to start a caravan, sending our brother, Najun, as its master. This way, Odofled can be with her true love, Aladdin, without the fear of angering her husband. I'm sure Najun won't question why his wife gave birth to 8 children while he was away. We have to work quickly. No woman in our party is allowed to spend a day without a baby in her belly. Afraid of our rising population, Raganvad offered us vassalship, not knowing he should be the one who is vassal. We continue climbing the tournament ladder and searching for more female companions. Meet Attila the Black, who is about to get browned. Meet Dinin the Alone. She won't be alone for long. Unfortunately, she doesn't speak the common tongue.
Shaved ape. Oh.
Meet Igunta the Wainwright. She will now be engineering flesh weapons. 7 women in our party, each one more pregnant than the last. We redistribute all of their skills. On the 6th day of winter, 1086, Zalisa gave birth to our first child. We welcomed her bastard son into our family as a legitimate heir. We continued with tournaments and bandit hunting. On the first day of spring, 1087, Yasna gave birth to our second child. We got her pregnant again 10 seconds later. Finally, we got rid of the peasants who had been following us all this time. Our carry weight was sustainable enough now. Then on the 7th day of spring, Aladdin's legitimate wife, Feya, gave birth to our third child. The loot from the Sea Raiders proved extremely valuable to us. We upgraded our virgin guards with their armor and melted down their weapons for smithing. We then forged some decent javelins with Sea Raider harpoons fitted to their heads and named them Dingo.
They will think that it is a huge robot's dildo flying towards them.
On the first day of autumn, Odofled gave birth to our fourth child. After successfully crafting 3 large bags of dingo, we resumed our routine, traveling from town to town for tournaments, ensuring the child production facility operated at peak efficiency, and clearing out bandits to hone our skills. We spent about 2 months doing this, and by the 5th day of winter, the Northern Empire had already been wiped out. Their lands were devoured by the Khuzaites, the Southern Empire, and even the Sturgians and Battanians. I have no idea how that happened, but I'm sure the other kingdoms will last longer. On the 7th day, our sister Alia came of age. We called her to our party immediately. Meanwhile, Feya gave birth to yet another one of our children, but then refused to do the deed afterward. It seems she lost her libido after spitting out 2 babies. Aladdin had to tease her with his sharp tongue a little to reignite her lust. We started buying workshops to increase our daily profits and took on smithing orders for massive stacks of dinars. With our increased clan level, we recruited another virgin guard. Meet Vasinya, the shield maiden. Aladdin had always had a thing for blondes. She served him well and fell pregnant on her first day on the job. Later, Aladdin won a sick helmet in a tournament in Ox Hall, transforming him into an Arabic king Baldwin. We gave our sister Alia focus points in trading and scouting, then sent her to lead a caravan. She will bring us money, not babies. We may be a horny pig, but we are no Jaime Lannister. We continued our daily grind of smithing orders and slaying bandits for weapon materials. Our workshops were becoming quite profitable. During our travels, I was up to my usual deeds with my brother's wife, when, out of nowhere, my own wife, Heya, caught me in 4K.
You're like an onion, an outer layer of cocksucker, and when you peel it away, there is 10 more layers of cocksucker underneath.
But that's because she let me Aladdin in her face.
She found this an understandable excuse and forgave us. Aladdin spent some time regaining her trust. After countless tournaments, our companions were now fully equipped with high-tier armor. We started selling our new tournament prizes and used the money to invest in Aserai banks to secure a wealthy future. Yes, interest is haram, but it was necessary for our jihad to succeed. Meanwhile, blacksmithing orders earned Aladdin a hefty sum. Some polearm orders inexplicably paid over 50,000 dinars. He became a legendary blacksmith. Hammering things into existence had become his expertise. Feya and Odofled both reached 225 in bow skill, allowing them to wield any bow on horseback. We bought noble longbows for them and noble bows for the rest of our virgin guards. Our family had already grown to 22 members. 8 women reproducing simultaneously was a challenge even Indians couldn't compete with. Meanwhile, Aladdin became the champion of the tournament leaderboard, earning 1 renown per day as long as he remained at the top. Checking in on our father, Unkid, we found him to be 48 years old, still very healthy and fertile. We needed him to stay alive long enough to witness the might of our offspring. Shortly after, a marriage proposal arrived. A poor lord from the destroyed Northern Empire sought to marry our sister, Alia, but he was not worthy of her. In fact, nobody was. She would serve our clan until the day she died. We then started buying and smelting pugios, daggers perfect for collecting high-tier smithing materials. After that, we forged swingable polearms for our virgin guards. With a reach of 168, these weapons would be effective both on horseback and on foot. We named them Claw. Yeah, not the most creative name, but it would do. Once all our guards were equipped with claws, we shifted focus to crafting a fine one-handed sword for our boy, Aladdin. Unlocking high-tier sword parts took quite a while, even with our increased research rate. But on summer 6th, 1089, we finally forged a beautiful golden sword and named it Zulfikar. Sadly, it lacked 2 tips, but at least it had a curvy enough shape. Aladdin kept forging and smelting until he created a legendary version. If only we could change the sheet as well. Now we turned our attention to creating the most overpowered javelins. We named them Washi, after a slave from Muhammad's era who was particularly skilled with javelins. He killed the Prophet's uncle and let his master chew on his liver. Anyway, those javelins were powerful weapons, and Aladdin crafted many masterworks of them. Hopefully, they would kill plenty of uncles too. We continued training our clan members on bandits, and on Winter 7, 1089, Danustica rebelled. We only had 9 people in our party, but we had to take our chance. We encountered 2 of their leaders on the way. First, we attacked the smaller group of 25. It wasn't much of a challenge since their party consisted mostly of fresh recruits. After easily dispatching them, we executed their leader. He had been an enemy of Undead, so his death actually improved Aladdin's relationship with his father. Now, it was time for the bigger fish. Arios commanded an army of 119, mostly infantry and archers. We ordered our companions to hold their ground for maximum precision, while we picked off their high-tier units with our javelins. As their infantry advanced, we repositioned our companions further back. Once their front line had thinned out, we commanded a full charge. Meanwhile, Aladdin had run out of javelins, so we retreated to replenish. The battle was now 61 versus 7. We re-established our formation on a hill and focused on dealing with their horse archers. After taking them out, we turned our attention to the remaining infantry. Some of their archers, having exhausted their arrows, began a desperate charge. We swiftly cut them down and shifted our focus to their backline. To maximize our effectiveness, we ordered our companions to hold fire and switch to their deadly pole arms. Meanwhile, we rode through their ranks to inflict additional damage. However, the uneven terrain, hills and a river confused our companions, rendering them nearly useless.
This thing is an idiot.
So we trample all of them under Nadal's hooves. Our Virgin Guard's performance was disappointing, but I'm sure they'll make up for it in future battles. After the fight, we executed Arion, yet another enemy of our father. With him out of the way, we moved on to besiege Danustica. However, their garrison of 300 stormed out of the gates to meet us in an open field battle. 212 of them were archers. To counter them, we equipped our sword and shield, knowing that we'd need to close the distance quickly. Taking down their low-tier infantry was easy, using hit-and-run tactics. But the real challenge was the massive horde of archers still waiting for us. We carved through them with Zulfikar, making full use of our cut-through-everyone mode. Despite taking some serious damage, we eventually forced them to flee. This victory also freed many Aserai noblewomen, granting us relationship boosts that could prove useful later. We attempted to resume our siege, but were immediately interrupted. Avigo's party of 48 dared to challenge us, with 27 surviving garrison troops joining his side. We swiftly dealt with his small cavalry force using our javelins, then kited their infantry and crushed their archers with the melees. However, we chose not to execute Avigos. As he is the second to last leader of the rebels, his survival was crucial. If the Aserai captured and executed the final leader, the rebellion would be crushed, and Danustica might return to Aserai control. We continued our siege, which took an extreme amount of time. Turns out, it's pretty hard to build siege equipment when you have only 9 people working, especially when 8 of them are pregnant and busy giving birth. 2 seasons later, we finally finished the siege preparations. Now it was time to build trebuchets. We moved them to reserve as they were constructed, knowing they all needed to unleash their power simultaneously to avoid being destroyed right away. During all of this, our little brother Fatih came of age. Exactly 1 year later, after what felt like an eternity, we finally completed our 4 trebuchets. We unleashed them all at once, and their catapults stood no chance. As the war of engines raged on, a marriage proposal arrived. They offered Gertlin's hand for Fatih. We accepted it immediately, adding yet another free breeding machine to our clan. On Autumn 3, one of their walls was finally breached, and we began the assault. However, it was a strangely broken wall, shaped more like a hill. Aladdin climbed it and started cutting down their infantry. The defenders couldn't decide whether to chase him or hold their position, and their hesitation proved fatal. Aladdin took full advantage, raining down javelins on them until he ran out of ammo. With no more javelins, he drew his sword and charged straight at their archers, thinning their ranks significantly before commanding his companions to climb the walls. But no one was coming. Apparently, they were too busy playing with the trebuchets, completely useless, failing to kill a single enemy, yet too stubborn to abandon them. Frustrated, Aladdin cut down more of the militia before retreating. This time, he destroyed the second wall and made sure to remove the trebuchets from the siege. With the last of the enemy infantry eliminated by his javelins, he led his companions in a final charge. We slaughtered everyone on the walls, one by one, or maybe two by two, I don't know. We won with only 3 wounded. Danystica was ours. It would be our stronghold, the fortress we could always rely on, a money printer that would sustain our empire until the end of our days. However, at the moment, the city was in terrible shape, starving, disloyal, and completely lacking security. We cancelled all city projects and switched the daily defaults to festival and games to prevent another rebellion. But even that wasn't enough. The loyalty was still declining. So we executed Avigos, gaining charm XP from the positive relationship boost with his enemies. This also unlocked the 225 charm perk, Parade, which granted our cities +5 loyalty while we remained inside. To further stabilize the city, we recruited prisoners to bolster the garrison, dumped the rest into the dungeon, and activated improved garrison for automatic recruitment and upgrading. We also summoned Fatid and his wife Gertlind to join our party. Now we had to wait in Danystica until its loyalty reached a safe level. Once it hit 40, we left to clear a nearby hideout. Despite its poor condition, Danystica was still generating 1,818 dinars per day, mostly from its villages. We started doing quests for the city and its villages to further boost their prosperity. With our increased clan level, we recruited another virgin guard, Zuwaira, an Arabic beauty. Well, not really a beauty, but good enough to do the job. Meanwhile, our daily profit from Danystica dropped by half. I guess village income fluctuates from day to day. We redistributed Fatid's skills to turn him into a master steward and engineer, then sent him to govern Danystica. This wouldn't just strengthen the city, it would also give Aladdin so much needed alone time with Fatid's wife, Bertlind, for reproductive purposes. We started city projects in Danystica, trusting Fatid to keep things in order and prevent another rebellion. Our focus remained on doing quests for the villages, periodically returning to the city to keep its loyalty in check. Other rebellions were breaking out across the map, but for now, we were only interested in securing cities near Danystica. While waiting inside Danystica, Bertlind approached me, suggesting we spend some time together. Naturally, I agreed. After a while, my brother Fatid approached me with a question.
Brother, what do you think of my wife, Gertlind?
Oh, Fatid, if only you knew.
Oh, I love her, brother. I love her very much.
Fatid smiled, pleased to hear that. Horos rebelled on the 4th day of autumn, 1093, a city not too far from our capital. Then, on the very next day, Myzea followed suit, a prime target sitting close to Danystica. These were golden opportunities. And yet, Aladdin, he was far too occupied with the noble cause of persuading his wife, Feya, to provide him with yet another heir. The world outside could burn for all he cared. His bed was soft, his lovers were warm, and the thought of riding into battle when he could instead be furthering his dynasty seemed like an unnecessary hassle. We kept producing children faster than Zimbabwe Prince Money and won tournaments as usual. But when Huzenfolk rebelled on Autumn 3, 1094, even a lazy bastard like Aladdin couldn't pass up such a golden opportunity. We marched right away with our 10 women, slaughtering the villagers to declare war on the rebels. As we approached Husnufulk, Iltas and Vusur's parties rushed out to face us with 118 men, mostly infantry and archers. Like the Danystica rebels before them, their troops had no answer for our horse archers. The battle provided valuable experience for our virgin guards. We started the siege, but just like Danystica, Their garrison charged out before we could even finish our preparations. Their peasant-filled infantry was no match for us, and while their archers were numerous, they couldn't turn the tide. Our victory resulted in the liberation of many Southern Empire nobles and their imprisoned troops, whom we welcomed into our party to speed up the siege. We executed the rebels we captured earlier. While the siege progressed, Aladdin continued to train his children in the ways of war. Exactly 3 seasons later, one of their walls was breached. We released the soldiers we had taken to speed up the siege, and destroyed the second wall and dismantled the trebuchets. It was time for the assault to begin. We positioned our soldiers behind a wooden cover while we charged in on our trusty Nadal, cutting through their shielded infantry with washes. Once most of them were cleared, we ordered a full charge. Their militia was annihilated without putting up much resistance. We took the city with only 2 wounded. We copied Danustika's improved garrison settings, recruiting mercenaries and peasants to hold the city, to ease their starvation while profiting from their desperation. We sold our food to the city. Unlike Danustika, loyalty wasn't an issue here since we shared the same culture, so we immediately began city projects to boost prosperity. By this point, our family had grown to 88 members, with our 10 women averaging around 8 children each, a number that is scientifically quite possible. We've decided to stop having children now, as this amount feels sufficient. Now we just have to wait for them to grow up. We cleared the 2 nearby hideouts to further strengthen our economy. To ensure stable governance, we appointed one of our virgin guards, Zuwaira, as the governor of Husan Fulk. Since she comes from Aserai culture, her presence should greatly benefit the city. We continued our usual routine, participating in tournaments and staying in our cities to boost loyalty, which in turn speeds up city projects. Meanwhile, our older children reached the age of 10. Unfortunately, they had been using the strange names their mothers gave them all this time. We quickly fixed this issue by renaming all the boys Aladdin and all the girls Alassin, then numbering them to make each one feel unique. On the 4th day of spring, 1099, Odoflit gave birth to a child fathered by Fatid. She had slept with every male in our family, except her husband. Poor Najun didn't deserve this. We named the child Fatid's bastard, and moved on. Exactly 1 year later, Odoflet gave birth to yet another of Fatid's children, Fatid's second bastard. I started feeling sorry for Gertland, now that we were no longer using her as a breeding machine. She must have been feeling very alone. Shortly after, a woman named Iona tried to flirt with Aladdin. She asked if he enjoyed meeting new people. He simply replied that he didn't like people bothering him, leaving her unsatisfied. Looking at the state of the world, all kingdoms seem to be in good shape, except for the Western Empire. On Spring 2, 1101, a rebel faction emerged within the Aserai ranks. The rebels sought to secede from the Sultanate. Seems like our father really messed up, with only 2 towns left under his control. Even though he was his father, Aladdin didn't feel sorry for him. Onkid needed to be humbled.
He's not the legitimate leader! He's not the legitimate...
On Autumn 2, 1101, the Aserai rebels offered Aladdin vassalship against his father. Come on guys, he doesn't hate him that much. By Spring 4, 1102, Ankid had lost the civil war, and the rebels forged a new kingdom with their lands, the Principality of Iqbail. Aladdin had no idea how much longer his father could survive, surrounded on all sides. We still needed our children to grow up before we could save him from annihilation. Meanwhile, a dirted clone named Perrin asked for our sister's hand in marriage. His cross-dressing certainly made him stand out, but our sister was going nowhere. All this time spent waiting had made our cities grow rich. We were now making 1,000 profit from Husan Fulk and 2,500 from Danustika, even after deducting the 1,000 dinar expense for the 300-strong garrisons in both cities. On Spring 4, 1104, our clan tier reached level 5, meaning we could now have 1 more virgin guard in our party. We traveled to Razi and recruited Abail, a fierce Batanian woman 14 years younger than Aladdin. Damn, we're growing old. 2 days later, Ragia died of old age. She was only 62 years old. I can only hope Aladdin doesn't share her fate. Rest in peace, Queen. One day after her death, a civil war broke out in the Southern Empire, led by Clan Vetranis. And one day after that, we failed the main quest. If you didn't know, this doesn't actually have any effect, other than making it impossible to reunite the Empire under the Dragon Banner. So, we're fine. Our children were about to come of age, and they would need crafted weapons. We traveled across the Empire collecting Pugios like Pokemon. Then we started crafting long two-handed axes for our children. Unlike our virgin guards, who fought with swingable pole arms, they wouldn't have to rely on cavalry tactics, making them superior in sieges. On the 7th day of winter, 1104, Aladdin II came of age. He was quickly followed by Aladdin III, Aladdin IV, and Alasin. We then renamed the rest of our children. The final count, 70 Aladdins and only 13 Alasins. I was joking when I said I'd throw the girl babies into trash cans.
It's a girl. Where's the trash can?
But it seems our concubines took this seriously and forced their bodies to give their babies schlongs. Jokes aside, I don't have any mods to alter our baby's gender. Seems we got extremely lucky, as having more male children means more wives joining our mighty clan. Our children continued to come of age, and on the 6th day of autumn, 1105, the Southern Empire crushed the rebels and reunited their lands. Good job, guys. Ragia would be proud. Right after that, another civil war broke out in Vlandia, demanding Dortort abdicate the throne. These rebels couldn't be more righteous. We disbanded our caravans and called our older brother and sister to join our party. On the 4th day of winter, 1105, we received a marriage offer for Aladdin IV. Our army of offspring continues to grow. We started collecting noble bows and longbows to prepare for their arrival. We increased their skills without adding extra focus points in order to not have to change all of their bows every time they level up. As days passed, more of our children came of age and more marriage proposals followed. On Winter 4, 1106, Dertart lost the civil war and surrendered his throne to Calatilt. On Autumn 1, 1107, Phaikon rebelled against their Bethanian masters, a perfect city neighboring our lands. We now had 30 people in our party. We declared war on the rebels straight away, by attacking one of their leaders. 30 versus 145. Now that we had more than 20 soldiers, we could arrange their deployments. We spread our horse archers into 2 groups and positioned them on different sides. While one formation attracted the infantry's attention, the other fired arrows at them from behind. As the infantry closed in, the baiting formation moved further while the flanking one moved closer. We made quick work of their infantry and charged their archers while holding fire. An easy victory with only 2 wounded. We started besieging Phaikon, but their garrison and one of their leaders stormed out of the gates to attack us. 307 versus 30. We got rid of their small cavalry force and used the same flanking tactic as before. Their low-tier infantry fell quickly, and my great family decimated their horde of archers with their long weapons. An even easier victory with no casualties. We executed the 2 rebel leaders and gained the deceitful trait. Around a year later, we destroyed their walls. 30 of our kinsmen versus 152 of their militia. We removed the trebuchets and started the assault. We charged inside to penetrate their infantry while our archers cleared the walls. Then we hugged the narrow street to create a brutal meat grinder. Afterward, we cleared the remaining archers on the walls. Easy siege with no casualties. We managed the town and waited inside for a while to raise its loyalty to a safer amount. Onira, one of our neighboring cities, on the other hand, had negative loyalty under the Principality of Iqbal's rule. Another potential city to take before declaring our kingdom. We continued our daily routine of participating in tournaments and clearing hideouts near our cities. On Winter 2, 1108, another civil war started in the Western Empire, demanding their emperor abdicate the throne. It was a brutal situation for an already weakened kingdom, with only 2 towns left. And on the 5th day of autumn, 1109, the Western Empire was eliminated. leaving only their rebels in Calradia. Onira was taken by the Kuzites, which made the city even more disloyal. While we waited for Onira to rebel, another civil war broke out in the Southern Empire lands, with demands for their lands to secede from the kingdom. Before Onira's militia could rebel, the city was retaken by the Principality of Iqbail. On Spring Feet 1110, we waited a bit more, and one season later, Onira finally rebelled. We quickly rushed to the city and attacked one of their leaders on the way. It was 30 versus 77. The battle ensued inside a village, but we waited just outside of it, letting the enemy come to us. We needed the open field to easily kite them. It was an easy victory with no casualties. We traveled to Onira to begin the siege, and as expected, their garrison attacked us. It was 326 versus 30. Unlike the previous one, this battle took place in a vast open field. Urios was mumbling some words before he took a javelin through his shield.
Your end is near.
Unable to touch us, the enemy infantry was wiped out without effort. Their 200 archers were scattered across the open field, covering the entire space between the mountains. They watched helplessly as we slashed through them one by one. Afterwards, we assigned our sister Alia as our party's scout. She was quite experienced, thanks to her years as a caravan master. While we were besieging Onira, one of our daughter-in-laws married Amorkon, a Vlandian lord, after divorcing our son Aladdin 19. However, this resulted in Amorkon joining our clan, instead of our daughter-in-law leaving. Fine by me. More siege preparations later, the Southern Empire was eliminated, leaving their rebels on Calradia, just like the Western Empire. After some more time, one of the rebel leaders attacked our party with his 145 men. They had 25 horse archers, which Aladdin quickly dealt with using his Zulfikar. Meanwhile, Garotion catcalled one of my concubines, and she quickly punished him for it.
Don't get
Their Khuzait infantry had nice shields covering their entire bodies, making them much more durable. But using the same flanking tactics as before, we eliminated all of them. After waiting for 3 seasons, Onira was finally ready to be taken. We cleared the left side of the town and positioned our archers in its corner. The rest of their forces coming from the right side fell to our arrows one by one. We now held 4 neighboring cities, yet still hadn't declared our kingdom. Onira was in very bad condition with only 1,400 prosperity. We managed the city and cleared the nearby hideout. We also started melting the weapons we had gathered to ensure we had enough materials for the weapons of our soon-to-come offspring. On Winter 6, a civil war broke out in Khuzait ranks, demanding their good old Khan Monchuk abdicate the throne. Looking at the map, all kingdoms were still in good shape, including the Southern Empire rebels. Meanwhile, Unkid was still alive and kicking at 71 years old. As for the rest, Kaladog, Monchug, Thais, Raganvat, and Kalatild were all alive, despite all of them being over 60 years old. On Summer 7, 1112, Zionica rebelled. Just one more town before declaring our kingdom wouldn't hurt. If you're wondering why I still haven't declared it yet, I'm waiting for all of my children to come of age to guarantee our success. If we lose our lands, our kingdom would be destroyed because of the diplomacy mod. Looking at our relationships with the rulers, everyone hates us except for our father, Thais, and Kalatild. Our executions of the rebels polarized the kingdoms against us, turning the enemies of the rebels into our allies, and their allies into our enemies. We've declared war on the Zionica rebels by attacking one of their villages, Zokoris. Kurios charged at us before we besieged the city. His army stood no chance, just like the previous rebels. As usual, their garrison stormed out of the gates to confront us and got brutally slaughtered. We started the siege, and on the 5th day of autumn, 1112, we became a grandfather. One of our boys, Aladdin 9, had impregnated his sister-in-law. From father to son, a tradition that would follow for hundreds of years in the great house of Wadia. Another year of besieging, with interruptions from rebel leaders, and the notification of Monchug losing his civil war to the Kyrgyz clan. Zionika's militia of 196 was as easy to beat as the others before it. Another free settlement for Clan Banu Wadia. On Winter 2, 1113, all of our children finally came of age. They will be
Used for peaceful purposes.
We call all of them to our party. As of now, Aladdin stands at 1747 kills, while most of our virgin gods have around 100 to 150. Later, we will see who racks up the most kills and proves worthy of the throne after Aladdin. We renamed all of our daughters-in-law as Badia and numbered them just like our sons and daughters. Allowing them unique names would be an unfair privilege, something that Aladdin the Fair cannot permit. Their skills were redistributed just as we did with our virgin guards, specializing in polearms and bows with 280 points each, 20 points higher than Khan's guards. To ensure no unrelated men meddled with our concubines, we appointed Amorkon as the governor of Zionika. Then we ensured our sons were formidable warriors as well, training them to master both two-handed weapons and bows. Additionally, I created a separate formation for 30 of my sons and named them Washi. They specialized in one-handed swords and javelins, their shields providing cover for the rest of our army against enemy archers, while their javelins served to counter heavily shielded troops as they advanced. For the next several weeks, we focused on forging the finest weapons for our family members, tailoring them to their respective combat roles. During this time, Garrios' clan rebelled against the Western Empire rebels, essentially becoming rebels against the rebels. On Winter 2, 1114, our army was fully prepared. The only task remaining was to clear out a few sea raiders to upgrade the Washi's shields. With that done, we set out for our lands to finally declare our kingdom. On the way, we encountered one of the last remnants of the Zionika rebels. We arranged our formations carefully. The first group consisted of Aladdins and Alasins, wielding their mighty two-handed axes. The second included Badias and virgin guards armed with long polearms, and the third was reserved for the Washis, ready to unleash a storm of javelins. Our force of 117 warriors swiftly overwhelmed the enemy troops, solidifying our reputation as an unstoppable force. Upon returning to Zionika, we entered our hall. We got comfy on the throne for a bit, staring at our offspring, unable to decide whether they were a failure or a success. Running around in underwear wasn't exactly fitting for a king, so we bought clothes and a cute little hat for Aladdin. Then we spoke with the governor, Amorkon, to finally establish the dictatorship of Wadia. We created a council of women to discuss the future of our sultanate, a grave mistake by Aladdin I. Years of messing around with towns had earned us over 2,000 influence, so we enacted key policies to further increase our daily influence and profit, along with some loyalty policies.
What are civil rights?
I'll tell you later. They're hilarious.
We had a total strength of 2,000, while the other kingdoms ranged between 7 to 10,000, Glandia leading with over 13,000. For some reason, the ButterLords always end up on top in every campaign. We formed a non-aggression pact with Batania and Vlandia, then traveled to a Vlandian castle to rescue an imprisoned royalist Western Empire lord. Since his kingdom had been destroyed, I assumed he would be eager to join us. However, our relationship with Dave Falcon was at -1, apparently just low enough for them to refuse us entry into their castles. So we sent a messenger to their leader and exchanged gossip about other lords, which somehow turned him into our bro. With the newfound friendship, the castle guards finally let us inside. We staged a prison break for Amenon, instructing him to wait while we quietly dispatched the guards by carefully inserting our Zulfikar into their bodies. He was free but needed time to recover before discussing his clan's future, so we had to wait. Unfortunately, the sneaky Khuzaits saw our northern expedition as an opportunity and declared war on us. Right after that, the Western Empire rebels offered a non-aggression pact, which we gladly accepted. Before the Khuzaits could begin besieging our towns, we struck first by attacking one of their castles. This immediately lured their army of 874 towards us. We abandoned the siege to prevent the garrison from joining the fight. Among their forces, 300 were horse archers, an excellent opportunity to test our family's strength. We positioned our washes behind our horse archers, ready to advance in a shield wall when the enemy cavalry closed in. To prevent our horse archers from becoming easy targets, we gave them the charge command. Aladdin rode out to engage the enemy horse archers with his Zulfikar. But even the strongest one-handed sword wasn't enough to one-shot the weaker units. Once most of their cavalry had been eliminated, we ordered our horse archers to hold ground, improving their accuracy against the remaining enemy riders, who struggled to maneuver fast enough to avoid getting hit. As the enemy's shielded infantry approached, our cavalry unleashed a devastating volley of javelins. Afterwards, our horse archers charged at their archers and decimated them with their long weapons. Witnessing their comrades being slaughtered, the remaining peasant infantry broke ranks and fled. It was a brutal victory, with only 10 of our soldiers wounded. Our companions averaged 10 kills each, with the numbers evenly distributed across formations. 8 Khuzait lords were captured. We began investing points into polearm skills, realizing that choosing one-handed weapons for melee combat was a mistake. They suck balls. Shortly after, we caught another Khuzait lord leading a small army. He hurled some creative insults at us before meeting his end at the edge of Zulfikar.
But as cool as a hand job on a honeymoon.
After that, we spotted an army of 1,420 marching toward Onira for a siege. We attempted to reach the city before them but got intercepted. I tried offering a bribe, but their commander simply sneered and said he would take it from my corpse. Their army was structured similarly to the previous one, with 300 horse archers, but this time they were backed by 400 cavalry and 600 infantry. The battlefield was small, but our deployment position was ideal. We placed our larger horse archer group in front, while the smaller group took position on a small hill to the right. Our cavalry, as always, waited in the rear. The dense forest surrounding us would neutralize the enemy cavalry's effectiveness. As the enemy cavalry closed in, we moved our own forward to intercept them. While our cavalry blocked their charge, our horse archers rained arrows down from the hill, cutting them down as they struggled to maneuver. Trapped in the meat grinder, their cavalry was gradually wiped out after a prolonged clash. We got rid of their horse archers without leaving our ground, just like before. Then came their infantry and cavalry reinforcements. Their square-shaped shields rendered our arrows ineffective, so we ordered everyone to follow Aladdin. We quickly wiped out their archers and baited their infantry into the open field, where they were kited into oblivion. Soon after, the rest of their reinforcements arrived, hundreds of low-tier horse archers awaiting their inevitable demise. We ordered a full charge, and after a few minutes of pursuit, victory was ours. We suffered 36 wounded, while our companions racked up impressive kill counts, some surpassing 20 kills, particularly the Aladdins and Alasins. In the aftermath, we captured 10 enemy lords and 1 mercenary. Additionally, we rescued a noble from the Komnos League, earning a significant relationship boost. After the battle, Amenon, the lord we had rescued earlier, was finally ready to speak with us. Unfortunately, he couldn't join our kingdom. It seemed the fall of his own kingdom had stripped him of his noble status, rendering our efforts useless. As for the captured Khuzait lords, they were all sworn enemies of the Aserai and Imperial factions, the very lords we aimed to recruit. This made it clear that we could safely execute the Khuzaits without facing any consequences. We won't do this to lords from other kingdoms, but fuck Khuzaits in particular. Aladdin also needed to quickly gain experience to transition to polearms more efficiently. Executing prisoners gave him a good amount of XP thanks to the relationship gain it caused. We crafted 2 new polearms for Aladdin. First, HIV Aladdin, a long polearm made for mounted combat, and second, Pinky Aladdin, a shorter version better suited for ground battles. Surely, I won't forget to rotate them between sieges and open battles. Next, we headed to Korinia Castle to finally take it. During the siege, the Principality of Iqbal declared war on us, so we had to move fast. We skipped building siege engines and went straight for the attack. We wiped out the enemy on the walls with our javelins, while our soldiers climbed the ladders and handled the rest. We captured the castle with only 33 wounded. Afterward, we sent a messenger to one of the clan leaders of the Confederation of Vetranis. Since his clan didn't hold any thieves, he was more than happy to join us after we offered him 200,000 dinars as assurance. We decided to gift him Onira, which had seen better days, with its prosperity already suffering from all the wars. A peace proposal from the Kuzites arrived, offering us 140,000 dinars as war reparations. He declined, holding out for a better deal. Defending our lands shouldn't be too difficult, considering the borders of the Kuzites and Principality of Iqbal are close to each other, meaning the war would likely focus on one front. We then turned our attention to an Iqbal vassal. With HIV Aladdin in hand, Aladdin I became an unstoppable force. The polearm proved to be far superior to his legendary Zulfikar, making him a beast on the battlefield. We crushed the enemy party with ease and took their leader prisoner. After that, we sent a messenger to another landless Southern Empire rebel, Archon Temion, and recruited him for 500,000 dinars, turning him into Emir Temion. We gifted him Zionica, definitely a generous move. Even though we aren't assembling armies, we still need our vassals strong to defend our realm, while we focus on conquering more land. Then we signed a non-aggression pact with the Southern Empire rebels and formed an alliance with our father, Ankid. Next, we recruited another landless Southern Empire rebel, Archon Serendon, for another 500,000. We then returned to Korinia Castle to defend it from a mercenary party. Their army was packed with Asrai shock troops, 3 kills for our horse archers. We took the mercenary leader prisoner and then headed south to besiege Shaibal Zumrar Castle. During the siege, Kuzite sent another peace proposal, offering 10,000 more dinars in war reparations than the last. We accepted this time and continued the siege. Pinky Aladdin reaped many Asrai souls with its curvy head, and the castle was ours without much trouble. Afterwards, we returned to Onira to defend it from an army of 1,400. We couldn't assault their siege camp due to a lack of spare troops, so we visited a nearby village to recruit a few soldiers. We used them as bait to get inside the city, dumping the ones who survived and starting the defense. Our family members filled the right side with green bars from their arrows, while Aladdin cleared the ladders with Pinky Aladdin. The enemy managed to destroy the gate with their battering ram, but throwing a single rock was enough to knock them out. The rest of their forces tried to climb the walls, but we cleared them out again, sending the enemy fleeing. 11 Iqbal lords were captured. Next, we besieged Lavinia Castle. One of their walls was extremely short, which allowed us to quickly scale it and slaughter their forces. Another easy castle siege, no engines needed. Afterward, we caught another Iqbal vassal, Duane. After that, we besieged Vastrum, which had a strong defense of 400 militia and 150 garrison troops. We charged without building any engines. They had 4 catapults, but thankfully, they couldn't aim for shit. They were swarming the walls, but after a long grind, we managed to swarm them right back. From there, it was impossible to stop us. Their last remaining forces were hiding, and Aladdin found them by jumping into a hole. They surrounded him, but he managed to open the door before dying, and cleared them out with his javelins. The city was ours, with only 55 wounded. We continued to hunt their parties.
You do not know what pain is. Yet.
and caught an army of 500 besieging Vostrum. This resulted in the capture of all 4 mercenaries of the Javval clan. Mercenaries are a pain in the ass, serving only to slow down our conquest. So we executed all of them and eliminated the Javval clan. Not great for our relationship with the Aserai lords, but still worth it in my opinion. Afterward we besieged Poros, which was an even easier victory than Vostrum, with only 9 casualties. Then we caught an army of 350 trying to besiege one of our castles. The army was led by Sultan Tais and 3 mercenaries from the Beni Zilal clan. Their last remaining member was imprisoned in a nearby castle. The battle was a fight between horse archers that resulted in our inevitable victory.
I love the smell of burning meat in the morning.
We captured all of them and then traveled to Shibal Zumur Castle to deal with the last remaining Beni Zilal. Before we could take him to our party though, we needed to retake the ownership of the castle from Turiados. This cost us some influence, and our vassals weren't too happy about it. But the Beni Zilal clan was no more. The principality of Ikbail was already worn out from the war and wanted peace, but we were just getting started. We captured another one of their castles and even accepted a bride from them. Our clan was growing stronger with each marriage. Siege after siege, battle after battle, we carved our way through the lands that were rightfully ours, reclaiming our homeland from the traitors who had once sworn loyalty to our father. No army dared stand before us, for every warband that took the field was crushed beneath our relentless advance. No fortress could withstand our fury, for we shattered gates, scaled walls, and tore down the banners of those who sought to defy us. With each victory, the blood that was repaid, and with each fallen foe, our vengeance grew ever closer to completion. Nothing could stop us. Nothing would. Lords fled from our party, scrambling to raise new armies, only to be hunted down, shattered, and captured once more. As we consumed their forces in the south, our vassals pressed forward in the north, seizing their fortresses and claiming their lands. The traitor Sultan's once loyal vassals, left landless and broken, swore fealty to us, choosing survival over empty oaths. Our relentless conquest showed no sign of slowing, until we encountered a force unlike any before. An army of 1,750 mercenaries, the combined strength of Javval and Beni Zilal, stood united against us, seeking vengeance for their fallen leaders. The 750 cavalry rode with deadly precision, while 1,000 infantry stood firm, ready to meet us in battle. On Summer 1, 1117, the battle began. Our horse archers took position at the edge of the map, using the nearby hills for cover. A wave of Javelineer cavalry charged in first, followed by a horde of camels. Their slow, lumbering mounts made them easy prey for our archers. Their numbers meant nothing as they fell before they could even raise their javelins. The battlefield was soon littered with riderless steeds, wandering aimlessly among the dead. Then came the enemy infantry, black-skinned warriors clad only in lion furs, their massive shields deflecting our arrows. But when we closed in with our axes, their ranks crumbled, leaving them no chance to form a solid shield wall. Resistance was futile, and the names of Javval and Beni Zilal were erased from Calradia forever. Our victory was absolute, with only 16 wounded. Soon after the battle, Ikbail returned with another army, 500 palace guards and 500 veteran infantry, uniting their remaining strength in a last attempt to stop us. The palace guards led the charge, but without the protection of the veteran infantry's shields. They fell before even reaching our horse archers. Meanwhile, the veteran infantry took a longer route, circling from the left to flank us as their shock troops crumbled. We quickly repositioned. Our formations surrounded them. 2 struck from behind, while the 3rd lured them in. Realizing the trap, they abandoned the chase and formed a circular shield wall. We answered with our javelineers, who closed in, shattering their defenses and thinning their ranks until panic set in. Their infantry scattered, and we claimed another decisive victory with only 8 casualties. As we besieged another castle, a notification appeared. Caladog had abdicated after losing the civil war. We took the castle, but tragedy struck. Badia 18, one of our daughter-in-laws, fell in battle. Finding her husband a new bride would not be difficult. With nothing left to mourn, we pressed on to end the Principality of Iqbail once and for all. But another army arrived to interrupt our conquest. Even bandits had allied with the Principality to stop us. 10,000 Bedouins surged from the deserts, gathering for one final stand. As usual, we split our 3 formations to flank them. The first 1,000 Bedouins began their march, their torches glowing red in the blinding darkness, a warning of their approach. When they closed to about 100 meters, we unleashed our arrows. Many fell before they could reach our lines. We repositioned and cleared the rest of their forces, charging at the few who remained. Another 1,000 soon followed, but we tore through them with the same tactics. We crossed the river to face the remaining 8 waves, our fire arrows lighting up the desert night. After clearing 3,000, we ordered a full charge, certain their numbers could no longer touch us. The Bedouins fell before us like a horde of mosquitoes, but even a swarm of mosquitoes can kill a man if their numbers are great enough. Our projectiles ran out, and we were forced into a direct charge. The sheer weight of their horde stopped us in our tracks, their long spears knocking us down with each step. Even though the right side of the screen was filled with green bars, we couldn't afford any more casualties with such a massive difference in numbers. Soon, 70 members of our family were knocked out. We tried to retreat as quickly as possible, but more of our forces continued to fall during our desperate escape. We began the fight again, 46 of our family members against 3,405 Bedouins. But this time, we had replenished our arrows. Maybe, just maybe, we could still win. Our formations were spread evenly, with 12 soldiers in each, preparing for the oncoming wave. As the Bedouins climbed the hill, we started releasing our arrows. Aladdin the First, with Pinky Aladdin in hand, charged at them. Unfortunately, he had forgotten to switch it back to HIV Aladdin. Despite its shorter range, Pinky Aladdin still proved deadly, cleaving through Bedouins with each swing. Aladdin circled around them, thinning their ranks, but in response, the Bedouins' spears chipped away at his health. Soon we had cleared the first wave of 1,000, but Aladdin was left with only 10% of his health. Desperate to stay in the fight, he switched to his javelins, hoping to clear them from a safer distance. But realizing it was too slow, he charged again with Pinky Aladdin, trying to avoid their spears. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. One spear reared up his horse and another knocked him out. Attila the Black charged with her polearm right after him. Like Aladdin, she cleaved through Bedouins with fierce determination, but the spears proved too effective at piercing her armor. Soon after, a spear struck her leg, dealing 26 damage, and she got knocked out. Right after Attila, Zalisa the Exile charged, but fell quickly. Aladdin the 10th also went down just as fast. Badia the 14th and 3 others were all that remained. She charged forward but was severely wounded, and 2 of the other 3 fell shortly after. With the little health she had left, she managed to escape the battlefield. Now 2 of our injured family members were left to face 2,000 Bedouins, a battle that was simply impossible to win. Instead of charging in, we chose to spend 3,100 influence to sign a peace treaty immediately. It was a bitter decision, but it spared us from imprisonment at the cost of allowing the Principality of Iqbail to survive. We would have to wait 21 days, 3 full seasons, before the peace treaty was final. Once our wounded recovered, we recruited a landless vassal from our father. Figured he'd be more useful under our command. We gave him Iakis. That left Unkit with just 1 vassal, so we tried recruiting him too, but he was still loyal to our father. No luck there. Next, we recruited Archon Krotor, one of the landless Western Empire rebels, for only 72,000 dinars, and granted him Vostrum. Then came Archon Varmiros for 500,000. He got Poros. Right after that, a Southern Empire rebel, Archon Matis, joined our ranks for 336,000 dinars. We gave him Phycaon. At this point, our Sultanate had grown to rival the remaining big kingdoms, boasting 10 clans under our rule. But stealing his vassals must have really pissed off the ruler of the Southern Empire rebels. In a pathetic attempt at revenge, he copied our kingdom's colors to confuse my emirs. A cheap strategy from a cheap kingdom. Aladdin was fuming, but he had to wait over a year for the non-aggression pact to expire before settling the score. In the meantime, we focused on managing our newly conquered cities. Then, on autumn 7th, 1117, our father broke his alliance with us. Guess stealing his vassals was the last straw. Not that he was strong enough to lead them anyway. By spring 2, 1118, civil war broke out in Khuzait lands, leaving the loyalists clinging to a single town. With our clan tier maxed out, we recruited one last virgin guard, Yuin the Huntress. She got wrapped in solid gear and the tip of our penis. On summer 3, 1118, another grandchild entered the world, Aladdin ibn Washi 10. At this point, we had only 2 grandchildren, both from our ever-productive daughter-in-law, Badia 17. Hopefully she doesn't turn my sons against each other. On summer 6, my vassals pushed to declare war on the weakened Khuzaits. We agreed. Surely they didn't need our help to finish them off. But while we were busy managing our towns, the Khuzait loyalist Khan Hurunag died of old age, causing the rebels to disband and the entire Khuzait faction to reunite. With our vassals now facing a stronger enemy, we decided to step in and attacked Monchuk's army of 1,000. Just like before, we positioned ourselves in a dead end to neutralize enemy riders. Their horse archers got stuck against each other, turning them into easy prey for hours. Soon they repositioned into a real dead end, and we ordered our soldiers to follow us into a charge while they watched helplessly. Aladdin cut down hundreds with his polearm before finally getting knocked out. The new Virgin Guard, Yuin, took command, and after a bit more fighting, the enemy broke and fled. 12 Khuzait lords were captured, but Monchuk and another managed to escape. We hunted them down before they could get away. As per tradition, we executed all the Khuzait lords, including Monchuk himself. After the battle, the Khuzait sent a peace proposal, offering 300,000 dinars in war reparations, 15,000 gold per day, and returning Erzenur castle to us. It was too good of a deal to pass up, so we accepted. Our non-aggression pact with the Southern Empire rebels had expired, so we declared the inevitable war. We struck immediately, attacking the Emperor's army. He was no match for us. After capturing him, we hunted down more of their lords and besieged Likaron. One of our armies joined to assist. We destroyed the walls, making the siege effortless, and the city was given to Clan Varmiros. From there, we rushed to Poros to defend it from an army of 860. We recruited some soldiers from a nearby village to sneak inside the city, then ambushed the enemy while they were still constructing their siege engines. We wiped out everyone in the area and destroyed their engines, but it seemed they refused to attack without them, so we let them build. Once they launched their assault, they found the walls too crowded to climb. After losing 350 men, the enemy broke and fled. Caster of the Embers died on the battlefield. We captured one of their lords and 2 of the Embers. Next, we crushed the remaining enemy force of 228 with a swift charge. Capturing the last Ember, we executed all the mercenaries and wiped out the Embers of the Flame clan. Then we continued hunting more mercenaries and lords. Soon every member of the Hidden Hand was captured. We executed them all, eliminating another mercenary clan. Then a notification popped up. Isis' once loyal vassal Ialas had rebelled, demanding he step down from the throne. After more hunting, we captured and executed the entire Gilman clan, raising yet another mercenary faction. With all the experience we had gained, we shifted focus to scouting. Soon we would take that role from our sister and achieve a -100% chance of prisoners escaping, something we desperately needed, as Emperor Patir had already escaped and formed another army. we hunted him down again. We then besieged Myzea, with another of our armies arriving to assist. We destroyed the walls and claimed the city. Tyronia was next, and once again, another allied army joined. One more town for the Sultanate of Wadia. The Southern Empire rebels had only one fief left, a castle in the far north, surrounded by a newly forged kingdom, the Earldom of Vayajeg, formed by Sturgian rebels. We took the castle, and with that, the Southern Empire rebels were no more. The thieves had paid for their crimes. Our next target was the Komnos League, the rebels of the Western Empire. After declaring war, we swiftly recruited one of their vassals, Archon Osarios, into our sultanate for 373,000 dinars. Then we hunted down Komnos League parties and encountered Emperor Lycos' army of 400 elite cataphracts. The battle took place inside a village, where we positioned our soldiers to take full advantage of the terrain. We split our cavalry into two formations, blocking all roads leading to our horse archers. As our cavalry's shield wall halted the enemy charge, our horse archers rained arrows freely. Aladdin I hurled his javelins, killing one cataphract with each throw. Then he slashed them from behind with his polearm. The fight progressed slowly, as both sides were difficult to kill. But once the enemy cataphracts realized victory was impossible, they attempted to flee. The village was soon overrun with their heavily armored horses, aimlessly roaming the field. After that, we besieged Jalmaris. During the siege, my vassals pushed to declare war on my father. We refused at the cost of 650 influence. Even after breaking our alliance, he was still our father. We took Jalmaris, and soon after, we encountered another mercenary reunion. The remaining Hidden Hand and Embers of the Flame members had united, seeking vengeance for their fallen leaders, 800 blazes and 800 puppeteers. We held our ground, waiting for them to come to us. Aladdin charged. Cleaving through their ranks, the blazes flooded the battlefield with sheer numbers, but their speed was no match for our horses. We made them run in circles, helpless in the open field. After their annihilation, the puppeteers arrived from the right flank. Without shields, their heavy armor couldn't withstand our arrows. They threw their petty daggers in response. Once we ran out of arrows, we switched to melee and charged. Watching their comrades get dismembered before their eyes, the remaining forces lost their will to fight and fled. Another brutal loss for Komnos League. Then we besieged Rotai. During the siege, a rebel faction emerged within Wadia's ranks, led by Clan Dionikos. Thankfully, they had no other clans backing them, at least for now. I suppose granting them Vostrum wasn't enough to satiate their greed. Rotai's walls proved resilient, forcing us to rebuild our trebuchets. Their militia was vast, 2,000 strong. Our archers cleared the walls from behind wooden covers, while Aladdin thinned the infantry ranks with his javelins. Washes stood behind him, waiting. Once Aladdin's javelins ran low, he and the Washes baited the enemy infantry into chasing them outside the walls. The fools fell for it, only to be slaughtered in the open field. They refused to learn, so Aladdin continued exploiting their stupidity. After a few cycles of this trick, nearly 3/4 of the militia lay dead. With the enemy in disarray, we ordered our archers and infantry to follow us and storm the walls. The battle turned into a massacre. Rotai fell, marking the end of the Komnos League. No imperial kingdoms remained in Calradia. With that, we turned our focus to the ongoing war with the Kuzites. And on the 4th day of spring, 1122, Sturgia was no more. The only kingdom left in the snowy northern mountains was the Earldom of Vayajeg. Afterward, we recruited Thais, the former ruler of Ikbail, now reduced to a mere vassal, into our ranks for 677,000 dinars. Then we continued annihilating the Kuzites, taking their lands, hunting their parties, crushing their armies, and executing their leaders. My vassals wanted to declare war on Vlandia, warning that they would devour all of Calradia if we didn't strike now. They weren't wrong, but first we needed to cripple the Kuzites. On autumn 3, 1122, our governor Amorkon died of natural causes at the age of 57. Aladin I, on the other hand, was still alive and kicking ass at 60. While we were busy slaughtering more Kuzaites, Iyalas, the new Sultan of Iqbail, declared war on us. Meanwhile, one of our sons from our Aserai Virgin Guard, Zuwaira, Washi 12, welcomed his third child into the world. He truly resembles his father. After annihilating the Kuzaites a bit more, we sued for peace and traveled to the last remaining lands of Iqbail to punish Iyalas for his insolence. He had stolen our Sultanate's colors, just like the Southern Empire rebels before him. As our party besieged their castle, our vassals urged us to declare war on the earldom of Vaijeg, claiming they were easy targets. We agreed. Iqbail failed to put up any meaningful resistance, and we conquered their lands one by one. During the siege of Kuyaz, our father, Unkid, declared war on us. It was heartbreaking for Aladin. I suppose Unkid's envy got the better of him. Undeterred, we continued our conquest, seizing both Aserai and Iqbail lands along the way. During our campaign, we recruited one of Iqbail's vassals, Emir Adas, for 727,000 dinars. Then we brought Emir Suruk, our father's last remaining vassal, into our ranks for 385,000 dinars. We then found our father besieging one of our castles with his 1100 men. We sneaked into the castle and defended it. Enemy failed to swarm the walls effectively and eventually abandoned the siege after taking down 156 of our men. Unkid, 2 lords and 3 mercenaries were captured. Aladin took his axe, sorrow weighing heavy in his eyes. Despite all of Unkid's mistreatment, he had tried to protect him. Despite all of his flaws, he had loved him. But in the end, Unkid had betrayed him nonetheless. After living for 83 years, Unkid's fate had finally caught up with him. With one swift strike, Aladin severed his father's head. Tears welled in his eyes, but he pressed forward, continuing his conquest. Now experienced enough in scouting, he achieved a negative 100% chance of prisoners escaping. He then executed all the leaders of Karakergit, wiping out yet another mercenary clan. Meanwhile, his vassals were busy dismantling the earldom of Vaijeg. Aladin marched on Sanala and the last remaining Aserai fief and began the siege. But during the assault, another rebel faction emerged within the Sultanate of Wadia. Banu killed. Perhaps executing Unkid had enraged them. Sanala had a strong militia and a high-tier garrison, but neither was enough to stop our offspring. On the first day of summer, 1124, the Sultanate of Aserai was no more. We then turned our focus to the last remaining fief of Iqbail, Askar. One of our armies joined the siege to assist. On the 7th day of autumn, 1124, the Principality of Iqbail was wiped from the map. Meanwhile, Battanian rebels had forged a new kingdom, the Laniric League, and declared war on us. We seized Ortisia, which had no militia due to its low loyalty, and then traveled to their homelands to hunt their parties. We laid siege to Remtoil Castle, and after capturing it, we crushed the army of 500 attempting to reclaim it. Neither Battanian infantry nor Fians were a match for the Aladins and Alasans. We then marched to besiege Marunat. During the siege, our vassals sought peace with Vaijeg, and we agreed. Not long after, the Vlendians declared war on us. Finally, we launched our assault on Marunat. The battle unfolded in the mud beneath a melancholic sky. Their resistance was fierce. One of them even had the wit to hide outside the walls. But in the end, Marunat was ours. During our siege of Marunat, the Laniric League managed to retake Remtoil Castle from us. So we marched back to reclaim it. As we laid siege, an army of 931 arrived to stop us. The battlefield was utter chaos. Flames, corpses and blood everywhere. In the midst of it, one of their lords, Vadikant, stepped forward and began hurling insults at Aladin's mother. Vadikant wasn't done. He continued mocking Aladin's parents. Aladdin endured the insults for as long as he could, but Vadikant just wouldn't stop. When the battle ended, their forces lay in ruin. Aladdin captured every last one of them and put his big black Aladdin inside their dirty mouths. Then he executed Vedikant along with the entire company of the Golden Boar, wiping yet another mercenary clan off the map. With the siege preparations for Remtoil Castle complete, Aladdin, confident in the balance of power, sent his troops to fight without joining the battle himself. But instead of victory, we suffered a crushing defeat instantly. Aladdin remained in the siege camp, waiting for his family to recover. A terrible mistake. Before long, the enemy launched a counterattack, while only 10 of our soldiers had managed to heal. We fought for our lives. Aladdin, driven purely by survival instinct, slashed through enemy horses while our horse archers held their ground, supporting him with a rain of arrows. He thinned the enemy infantry with his javelins, but once he ran out, he had to switch to his polearm. The risk was immense. He was down to just 40% of his health. Realizing he needed more javelins, he retreated. But during his escape, every single one of his family members was knocked out. It was now Aladdin against 65 battalions. He first cleared the remaining enemy cavalry before charging their archers. But their arrows struck him hard. He rode further away, then turned back for another charge. His horse had to stay at full speed at all times to avoid their arrows. 11 archers remained. If he could eliminate them, he could finish off the infantry with his javelins. He charged again. 2 more archers fell, another pass, 1 more down. As he lined up for yet another charge, an arrow pierced his leg, dealing 5 damage. It was just enough to knock him out. Aladdin was imprisoned. He spent all of his 5,000 influence to sue for peace. His army was shattered, and he had to wait for his soldiers to recover before rejoining the fight against the Vlandians. Worse yet, all of his smithing materials, provisions and loot were gone. He took refuge in his newly conquered city, Emarunat, but before long, 2 Vlandian armies marched to besiege it. With no choice but to flee, he sought a safer place to regroup. As he waited for his family members to assemble, a child was born to Washi 12 and Alasin 9 on the 5th day of summer, 1126. Aladdin felt conflicted. His offspring were together, creating more offspring. But in the end, it was beneficial for the clan. They were only step-siblings after all, sharing a father, but not a mother. So Aladdin allowed it. After nearly 3 seasons of waiting, his family members were ready to rejoin his party. However, his virgin guards were scattered across Calradia. He traveled between cities, finding them lingering in taverns, and while doing so, he checked his bank accounts. Most of them had hit the limit of 100 million dinars. Years of neglecting to withdraw money had caused his interest rates to reach absurd levels. With his newfound fortune, he bought as many Pujos as he could, crafting masterwork and legendary versions of his party's weapons to upgrade them. After nearly 2 years of preparation, they were finally ready to end the war against the Vlandians. His vassals had defended their lands bravely, but lacked the strength to capture Vlandian territory. Aladdin took charge, hunting down their parties and crushing their armies. Eventually, Calatilt conceded, agreeing to pay 300,000 dinars in war reparations and returning Ortisia to us. We took advantage of this period of peace to craft better weapons and upgrade our members' armor, spending millions of dinars on the best gear available. Turned out that open source armory offered far superior quality compared to vanilla armors. I suspect the RBM patch we installed didn't recognize that we had disabled the combat module, making open source armory gear far more resistant to cutting damage. This made our virgin gods and first Aladdins, who wore those armors, very hard to kill. Instead of going back to fix it, I decided to go all in balls deep and bought as much OSA gear as possible for the rest of our members. We'll balance things out by making our enemies even stronger. On the 7th day of winter, 1127, the Earldom of Wyjek declared war on us. We learned that a legendary warrior had joined their ranks, Ragnar of the Lodbrok clan. All of his attributes were maxed, every skill was at 300, and he had unlocked every perk across all skill trees, granting his troops massive health and damage bonuses. Alongside him were his 4 sons, Bjorn, Ubba, Hvitzerk, and last but not least, Ivar. Ragnar was equipped with legendary gear, armor as thick as Odin's balls, a sword and javelins as sharp as Odin's dick, and a shield as wide as Odin's hips. His army consisted of 802 infantry, including 250 Sturgian heavy axemen, 250 heavy spearmen, and 250 heroic line breakers. He challenged Aladdin's party to a dismounted battle, offering to join our ranks if we emerged victorious. Unfortunately, 3 leftover recruits from a recent siege break were still in our party. Unintentionally, we had brought them to their graves. We dismounted as Ragnar requested, but our horses obstructed our projectiles. To clear our line of sight, we had to move closer to the enemy. As soon as our arrows found their marks, their shock troops began to fall. At 60 meters, the enemy launched their charge. We unleashed our javelins, cutting down as many as possible before the lines clashed. The enemy encircled our soldiers on all sides, but we held firm. After taking down our Vashis, they turned their attention to our archers. Aladdin struck them from behind, yet Ragnar's perks made them frustratingly resilient. Our numbers dwindled, and just when defeat seemed inevitable, the enemy began to flee. The snow had turned red, littered with corpses, blood, and severed limbs. In the end, we emerged victorious, but only 22 of our soldiers remained standing. True to his word, Ragnar agreed to join us, though not without a price of 1 million dinars. His recruitment also led to Varnovapol becoming part of our Sultanate's lands. We hunted down Vajek's parties and seized their lands. Their troops were formidable, their shields difficult to break, but in the end, they weren't strong enough to stop our invasion. The Khuzaits also declared war on us, so we turned our attention their lands on north to connect our borders. During the siege, the Vlandians joined the fray, declaring war as well. However, Khuzait garrisons were no match for us in the sieges. After clearing most of the Khuzaits from the northeast and granting their lands to Ragnar, we traveled northwest to finish off Vajeg. We fought Vajegs, Batanians, and Vlandians all on one front, capturing many vassals before besieging Vajeg's last remaining fief, Omor. But a Vlandian army marched past us, ignoring our siege to claim our lands. Forced to abandon Omor, we rushed back to defend our fiefs. We engaged their army. Thick shield walls and rows of crossbows awaited us, yet they still lacked the strength to truly challenge us. Furious after his defeat, Durtur spat insults at us. Aladdin gave chase, but Durtur fled like a coward. A javelin to the back sent him tumbling off his horse, and another to the face knocked him out. We annihilated the rest of his forces. At 93 years old, this was Durtur's final greedy mistake. We took his head along with those of the vassals who followed him. We continued hunting down Vajeg parties and besieged Omor once again. However, a rebel faction emerged within our ranks, led by none other than Ragnar himself. The bastard planned to betray us after we had gifted him the entire north. Meanwhile, a peace proposal arrived from the Khuzaits. They were willing to return Makeb to us. We accepted. Soon after, Vajeg also proposed peace, offering to pay us 2,730 dinars daily. Considering Omor likely didn't generate that much income, we accepted, deeming it more beneficial for our Sultanate. With Vajeg dealt with, we turned our full attention to weakening Vlandia. But just as we were besieging one of their castles, a civil war erupted within their ranks. The castle had fallen to rebels, preventing us from continuing the siege. Shifting our focus, we traveled to Seonon to eliminate Batania once and for all. We built melee siege engines and starved the garrison before launching the assault, knowing our siege engines would be destroyed. We used them as distractions for enemy catapults while our archers rained arrows. Enemy boulders knocked Aladdin out, and most of our forces fell. But our remaining family members were strong enough to take the city. We won, though at the cost of 114 wounded. Yet Battania still clung to one last fief, Mazadan Castle. We crushed several armies roaming near Mazadan Castle, capturing every last member of the Lake Rats. With their executions, another mercenary clan was wiped from existence. Only 6 remained active. Just as we prepared to besiege Mazadan Castle, another civil war erupted within Battania. I attempted to attack one of their lords, but declaring war on the rebels was impossible. A clever tactic on their part to prolong their kingdom's survival. Instead of wasting time, we made peace with the Battanians and turned our attention back to Vlandia. We seized many of their lands, forcing them to sue for peace. They agreed to a daily tribute of 9,320 dinars. Afterward, we realized we had forgotten to recall one of our daughters-in-law to our party. Beneset, the Forgotten. She had divorced our son and married a man named Udris, the Wife Hunter. Amusingly, both of them were still in our clan, so we summoned them both to our party. Then we learned of another legendary warrior, Balor of the Fomorians, a demonic being summoned from the deepest pits of the underworld to save the last Battanian kingdom, the Laniric League, from annihilation. Like Ragnar, he had 300 points in every skill and had unlocked every perk in every tree. Balor led 600 Fian champions into battle, attacking Aladdin's party with unwavering confidence. But Aladdin knew exactly what needed to be done. He ordered his soldiers to charge straight at the Fians, who were scattered across the mountains. The enemy numbered in the hundreds, their black bear pelts draping the slopes in darkness. Amid the chaos, Aladdin spotted Balor hidden among his troops. Clearing the Fians near him, he waited until Balor was fully exposed, then hurled a javelin straight into his chest. But the Fians' relentless rain of arrows eventually brought Aladdin down. Aladdin the 18th charged in to avenge his father. The Fians were tough to kill, but Alajihad cleaved through them with brutal efficiency, each swing dealing over 200 damage. When our horde struck with a single overwhelming charge, the enemy broke and fled. Victory was ours with 54 wounded. Our victory left a deep impression on Balor. As a demon who serves only the strongest, he saw exactly that in Aladdin, the strongest. Acknowledging our power, he agreed to join our ranks. We hunted every Laniric party we encountered and laid siege to the rest of Battania's lands. Then, on Autumn 3rd, 1130, Vlandian rebels formed a new kingdom, the Grand Duchy of Yalibe. 2 days later, our granddaughter Alasin ibn Aladdin IX came of age. By Winter 6, 1130, we had seized all the Battanian towns from the Laniric League, leaving them with only one town in the middle of the map. Rather than wiping them out, we made peace and handed the captured Battanian towns over to Balor. That settled, we turned our attention to the Grand Duchy, determined to grant Balor the rest of Battania's former lands. Our first target was King Roman's army of 1107. The Green Plains were packed with their heavy cavalry and shielded infantry, but they were nothing special compared to what Aladdin had already faced. We secured victory with only 15 wounded, then executed all captured lords, including their king. For some reason, Ragnar had begun to despise us, his relationship with us plummeting to -62. To smooth things over, we gifted him a castle and 4 million dinars. We continued our conquest, capturing more of the Grand Duchy's lands. Meanwhile, Battania's civil war ended in disaster, leading to the rise of the Kingdom of Crovia and the destruction of the High Kingdom of Battania. After taking Penkanok, the duchy sued for peace, offering to pay us 9,460 dinars daily. We accepted and turned our focus to finishing off Vlandia, who had just declared war on us. We attacked an army of 800 Vlandians, led by an Aserai vassal who had risen to clan leadership after his wife's passing. We crushed his forces and endured a few more insults along the way.
I'll slap you, but shit splatters!
Though we emerged victorious, Badia 6 fell on the battlefield. In her name, we executed all the captured lords. Meanwhile, Ragnar's rebel faction had grown to a quarter of our total strength. We attacked Vlandian lands one by one, slaughtering their serfs and claiming their stone castles. During the siege of Oxhall, one of our sons, Bashi 14, fell in battle. May he rest between the Huri's legs. We continued to burn Vlandia's feudal lands, and on Autumn 5th, 1131, the Kingdom of Crovia decided to end their short-lived reign by declaring war on us. But first, we had to finish off Vlandia, which was down to just 2 towns. We clashed with Queen Calatil's army of 872. They stood no chance, and we buried their corpses under the snow. Their queen was dead, along with her followers. As for the last Vlandian towns, neither their garrisons nor their militias had the meat to slow us down. On the 7th day of spring, 1132, the kingdom of Vlandia was no more. We marched toward the kingdom of Crovia, which had already managed to seize 2 of our castles. But before we could reach them, the Grand Duchy declared war on us. Seeing a stronger target, we turned our attention to them instead. We attacked the duchy's lands and finally reunited Battania. For real this time. Now they would be ruled under the banner of the Fomorians. We crushed more duchy armies and seized even more of their lands. Eventually they gave up and offered us a massive daily tribute of 20,000 dinars for peace. We declined and continued our slaughter. On Winter 3, 1132, one of our first virgin guards, Dinind alone, passed away from old age. She had lived for 79 years, and her time had come. She had given birth to 9 children of Aladdin, all of them male. In her honor, we will build a statue of her in our capital, Danustica, once we have conquered all of Calradia. Meanwhile, our wife, Aya, was still kicking at 69 years old, though all of her previous family members had perished. The duchy's fiefs and armies fell one by one. After claiming all the lands we had taken from them under our clan's rule, we gained the close-fisted trade, marking our greed for all to see. After conquering many of the duchy's former Vlandian lands, we agreed to peace in exchange for a daily tribute of 15,000 dinars. With that settled, we marched to finish off the Kingdom of Crovia and the Laniric League. On the first day of winter, 1133, the Laniric League was no more. On the very same day, the Kingdom of Crovia also fell. Afterward, we marched east to finish our job. The Kuzite Khanate had split in 2. The Loyalists held 1 town and 1 castle, while the rebels, the Urkunate League, controlled 3 towns and 7 castles. The east was ready to fall. But then we heard of the rise of yet another legendary warrior, Attila. Aladdin had executed his entire family and clan, and he swore vengeance. Like Ragnar and Balor, he had 300 in every skill and had unlocked every perk. While we were still making our way east, our vassals eradicated the Kuzite Khanate, leaving only the rebels in Calradia. We declared war on them to put an end to the Easterners once and for all. We located Attila, leading 500 Khan's guards under his command. The battle unfolded in the steppe hills beneath a dark sky. We positioned our soldiers at the edge of the map and on a hill, just as we always did against the Kuzites. Before long, a horde of Khan's guards surged over the hills. We loosed our arrows, but Attila's perks had turned them into speedy tanks, shrugging off our volleys. However, as they pressed forward, their sheer numbers worked against them. They became stuck in a tight cluster. Aladdin slashed through everything in front of him, while our family members rained arrows into the tangled horde. The enemy moved erratically, trying to dodge our arrows, but in doing so, they blocked each other's aim, failing to land their own shots. As their ranks thinned, we ordered a full charge, holding back our arrows for the melee. The Khan's guards, struggling to keep pace with our soldiers, were cut down in close combat. The battle ended swiftly. We had only 1 wounded. Maybe Khan's guards were overrated after all. Attila agreed to join us after Aladdin made him an offer he couldn't refuse. His pick of any of Aladdin's daughters to marry. Even after losing his entire family, a Kuzite couldn't resist a foreign woman. With Attila's betrayal, the Khuzaite rebels lost their last hope of resistance. We crushed their armies and seized their remaining lands. During the siege of Akalat, another one of our sons, Aladdin 39, fell in battle. A true tragedy, if we didn't already have 69 more sons. Our eastern conquest continued, and we granted the newly claimed lands to Attila. Since we avoided plundering the cities to preserve their infrastructure, we earned the merciful trait, though calculating might be a more fitting one. On Spring 4, 1135, Attila finally made his choice. Alasin 7, our 41-year-old infertile daughter, who had already given birth to 5 children, and certainly not the prettiest. But if that's what he wants, who are we to question his taste? We laid siege to the rebels' last fief, Dinar Castle. Aladdin, in his infinite wisdom, sent his family to attack while he stayed behind. The result? A resounding defeat. Undeterred, we remained camped outside, waiting to recover. Once healed, Aladdin, once again, sent his family to fight alone. Another defeat. This time we lost Yashna, one of our first virgin guards. She was 81 years old and still cute. Such a shame. As 3/4 of our party lay wounded, an enemy army of 410 launched an attack. 300 of them were horse archers, relying on hit-and-run tactics to buy time. But time wasn't on their side. Our arrows, along with HIV Aladdin, made quick work of them. We won with 26 wounded and resumed the siege. Since their garrison had joined the battle, the castle was now defended by a mere 100 militia. This time, our family finally managed to take the castle without Aladdin's intervention. On the first day of autumn, 1135, the Urkunate League was no more. Only the Duchy and Vyjek remained, as we waited for our peace treaties with them to expire. Yet another civil war erupted, splitting the Grand Duchy of Yalibe in two. We waited a bit longer, taking the time to rename our many grandchildren in proper Aladdin language. Then, on autumn 3, 1136, Vyjek declared war on us. A hilariously bold move for a kingdom with only one town left. We hunted their scattered parties and laid siege to their last stronghold, Omor. Our vassal's army arrived to assist, and with their bonus speed we brought down Omor's walls in no time. The defenders stood no chance. On the 5th day of winter, 1136, the earldom of Vyjek was no more. With Vyjek wiped off the map, we took a moment to check on our family. That's when we discovered something unexpected. Our innocent, cute granddaughter, Alasin ibn Aladdin 9, was pregnant. From her uncle, you sneaky bastard. Meanwhile, Uba came forward with a request. He wanted to marry one of our daughters, but fearing that Ragnar might gain even more power and escalate his rebellion, we rejected the poor boy. On Spring 7, 1137, the Grand Duchy declared war on us, just like Vyjek had, with only one town left under their control. And just like Vyjek, their fate was sealed from the start. We annihilated their defenses, crushed their last stronghold, and by the second day of autumn, 1137, the Grand Duchy of Yalibe was no more. During all of this, the Grand Duchy rebels had forged another kingdom, the Counts of Castlevania. Their leader was none other than Vlad the Impaler of the Dracula clan, the son of the devil himself. He had every perk unlocked, and a monstrous 666 in every skill. With his final perk in medicine combined with his perks in other trees, his troops possessed over 600 health each. As for his forces, a perfect omen of his unholy pact. 111 elite soldiers of every max tier Vlandian unit, totaling exactly 666 men. He had sold his soul for one purpose: vengeance. His son had been executed by Aladdin's hands, and now he had returned to settle the score. Aladdin and Vlad's army faced off, each without any vessels, just raw, unmatched strength. Aladdin positioned his soldiers at the edge of the map. His first horse archer formation held the hills, the second lined up at the far left edge, and the cavalry formed a shield wall at the front. The battle began. Vlad's cavalry charged, and we loosed our arrows, but no one was dying. Aladdin's mighty swings barely scratched their heavy armor, their shields refused to break, their endurance seemingly endless. Realizing the futility of attacking the knights, Aladdin turned his wrath on the enemy infantry. With Nadal's speed, he weaved through their ranks, cutting down sergeants, volunteers, and pikemen alike. Yet, even the weakest among them took at least 4 solid strikes to fall. Meanwhile, our family members fought valiantly against Vlad's cavalry. 20 of our soldiers had fallen, but we had slain 100 of theirs. Still, with the numbers against us, it wasn't enough. Aladdin continued his onslaught, carving through the ranks as best he could. Eventually, the enemy infantry formed a circle shield wall in a creek, an immovable horde of steel and flesh. Switching tactics, Aladdin turned his focus back to the cavalry. Though tougher than the infantry, many had already sustained damage from our family members. Some had even lost their shields, making them easier prey. After thinning their numbers, he returned to the infantry, launching javelins from a distance to avoid getting swarmed. Then the sharpshooters ran out of bolts. They joined the infantry, making the horde even denser. Our family members, once picking off stragglers, were now trapped inside the riding mass of undead-like warriors. To make matters worse, enemy cavalry, whose horses had been slain, also joined the horde, reinforcing their defense. The chaos was overwhelming. Aladdin fought until exhaustion overtook him. Eventually, he was struck down. Washi 9 took command, his javelins depleted. Wielding only his one-handed sword, he weaved between enemy strikes, slashing wherever he could. But as he maneuvered around their shield wall, his horse was slain beneath him. Thrown to the ground, he scrambled to his feet, dodging pikes and swords, and continued the fight. Though he inflicted great wounds, he too was eventually overwhelmed and knocked out. Only 12 of our family members remained against 67 of Vlad's unholy warriors. Aladdin the 18th took charge. In a desperate final assault, our cavalry shattered their shield wall, and suddenly, panic spread through their ranks. The undead had fallen to fear. They broke. They ran. Their cowardice sealed our impossible victory. Only 10 of us still stood. Vlad the Impaler was captured. There was no question. He was too dangerous to be left alive. Aladdin impaled his black heart with a wooden stake, ensuring the son of the devil would never rise again. With Vlad gone, the rest of Castlevania stood no chance. Their armies crumbled, their castles fell, and one by one their lands were claimed under our banner. The war was over. On the 5th day of spring, 1138, the Counts of Castlevania joined the graveyard of countless kingdoms we had destroyed. Aladdin was 76 years old, and this was the story of how I conquered Calradia with only my family in 54 years. With no rivals left, Aladdin returned to his Sultanate's capital, Danastika. During the campaign, Aladdin I had reached 8,000 kills, an unmatched legend. Right behind him, Aladdin X had stacked up 800 kills. He was set to inherit the Sultanate when the time came, but that day was still far off. Aladdin I recruited another virgin guard, Megan, a young, beautiful woman who rekindled his lust.
You now have herpes.
He was happy, so happy in fact that he even let his daughters-in-law name their children without using Aladdinish words. A rare mercy. He enjoyed every bit of the wealth he had built over the years. Last I checked, he was 80 years old. When will he die? Only God knows. Maybe he'll live to 100, maybe even more. And that's the tale of Aladdin's conquest. Thanks for sticking around and watching the whole video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. It really helps out. If you're hungry for even more Bannerlord World Conquest, I highly recommend checking out my previous video. How a bandit destroyed every clan in Bannerlord. You won't regret it. See you in the next one.